Well, hello, back again, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. So, college football playoff rankings officially released Tuesday night, and the stakes are set pretty much for this weekend to see who's in and who's out, point blank. So, we'll go over the games and the rankings and give my personal rankings and how I ultimately think it'll all play out. But, we'll see. So, but nonetheless, thank you for joining me. Of course, we'll go over picks for week 14 or week 13, excuse me. Yeah, 13, getting ahead of myself. I had work last night and I'm like, but anyway, go over picks, predictions, all that, as well as chime in with some sports news around football and sports and all that. But before we get into it, of course, subscribe if you want to, and all. Anyways, thank you, and let's get going. So, some news before we get into predictions and everything. So, as far as today, Zach Ertz, the not vocal, but I would say highly talented and former Pro Bowl for many years tight end Zach Ertz has been released according to sources, and I'm guessing the main source on this is J.J. Watt. Zach Ertz made his request after, weeks of being on IR, and, Trey McBride, young tight end for the Cardinals, doing well in Ertz's absence. It's a quality move, I guess. Obviously 2 years ago, he was traded for by the Cardinals in hopes of being the last piece of their stylish offense, which it was 2 years ago with, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins and, A.J. Green, who was still in the league, and everyone, and Ertz, but James Conner as well. But ultimately, last year, tore his ACL. This year, trying to find his way back from the injury, and then been on IR the last month or so. And, there's a couple ways, but obviously the leading effect of this is probably a reunion with the Eagles. We know Dallas Goedert's injury, and how it's kind of affected them on offense the last number of weeks. We'll see. He's near a return, but, it's only the option. Another option could be the Baltimore Ravens. We know Mark Andrews had that big injury against the Bengals, which luckily it wasn't as serious as they claimed it out to be. But nonetheless, there's certainly a gap and a hole for them at that position. Although I do think Isaiah Likely and, the offense will keep going. But, one seed Ravens currently, if they want to. In the AFC, you got Kansas City. Also, you got the Jags. You got, Steelers possibly again. And the Dolphins. You need some extra ammo, it feels, on that offense, especially with how significant Mark Andrews is to that offense. It could certainly add to it. But we'll see. He's still got stuff left in the tank at 33, so yeah. Von Miller has an arrest warrant on him on domestic violence. I don't want to get too much, but it's obviously unfortunate because, he hasn't done much this year. Getting the big contracts and everything by the Bills. And, yeah, it's not been well. So, Tennessee for two-time Super Bowl champion as well as the Super Bowl 50 MVP. One of my favorite players ever to watch. But, yeah, it's certainly unfortunate how you see. The Mets signed two players per se, Joey Wendell and Luis Severino, to one-year deals. Severino, pitcher, obviously, with that brutal injury to Diaz last year. And then, Senga, Kodai Senga, luckily had a pretty comparable year, but I mean, with the expectation of having him, signing Scherzer, or having Scherzer, and then Verlander, and then ultimately letting those guys go. I mean, it was a mess for the Mets this year, so we'll see. Max Johnson, who had a pretty good 2021 with LSU, hasn't, I would say, match expectations with Texas A&M since transferring to North Carolina, UNC. So we know Drake May is going to go to the NFL after or in the next draft. So, I mean, a guy like him taking over who is a stud, good for him. And thinking about this transfer portal is like, it's good because you can get quality guys to take over, right as guys are about to graduate. So, I mean, It's one of my favorite things about the transfer portal. Desean Jackson has officially called it a career. One of my favorite guys to ever watch for the NFL. He, in a way, was a pioneer or a trendsetter for Tyreek Hill. You know, especially since I started really gauging the NFL in 2011, 2010, 2011. I witnessed Desean Jackson and, playing Madden and, watching the NFL. Certainly seeing him, a guy with very good speed, small guy, obviously he had some injuries which played him, but, him with Philly was always a fun watch. And then he had some quality years with Washington before, Tampa. There were expectations, obviously with Jameis and, having Mike Evans, and it just didn't come to fruition or what they expected. So, I mean, yeah, but seeing him run down the field and make plays was always fun to watch. Drafted in 2008, made it to the NFC Championship with the Eagles in his first year, but they couldn't really gauge the success or come as close to it with them there. When you think about it, the situation was very strange for him. Simply because, it's like he started his year catching pass, first 2 years, catching pass from Donovan McNabb when Donovan was kind of at the end of his starting run. Good run with the Eagles. And then Michael Vick, returning from his things off the field, that incident, that offense was certainly odd, but it was great in 2010. It's like Nick Foles, did really well for a number of time. Kind of wish he was on that team. But, he would always make flashes, last year in that Ravens-Jags game. He did have a big, long pass from Lamar Jackson. Always see him make that speed, but of course, injuries and, situations. Unfortunate, but one of my favorite players ever to see play the game. Desean Jackson, congrats on a hell of a career. No one missed too much. Fran Brown, hired as the Syracuse head coach. from a defensive backs coach from Georgia to an ACC head coaching gig, it's a pretty steep next level up, but not as good as conference, head coaching gig. Certainly step up, so we'll see. Also, Indiana hired Kurt Signetti, former James Madison coach. They went undefeated this year. Kudos to them, but okay, see that. All right. Now with the news out of the way, let's get into college football and the rankings and predictions and everything. So, on Tuesday, when the rankings came out, so basically, no one has finished under 6 and has made the playoffs with less than 2 weeks to go. However, when we look at it, I think we can say the top 8 is really the only teams that can make the playoffs. So, let's get into it. So, number 8, Alabama. 7, Texas. 6, Ohio State. 5, Oregon. 4, Florida State. 3, Washington. 2, Michigan. And 1, Georgia. Now, as far as who I would predict it as top 4, I would say Michigan, Georgia, Washington, and Texas. Texas has a better win than Oregon, that's for one. Number 8, Alabama. That's for one. The other thing is, Florida State, albeit they have gone undefeated, congrats to them. But, to be on your backup quarterback, going in the playoffs, if it's supposed to be the 4 best teams, I would certainly put in Texas over Florida State. Although Florida State, they still have a sound running game and defense, but alas, they almost lost that game versus Florida with a back QB. It's unfortunate because you don't want to undersell what they have done this year, but at the same time, with your backup QB, it's not too great. So anyway, that's my thoughts. So now the college football, the championship games this weekend are as well. So tomorrow, so we got the Conference USA game between New Mexico State and Liberty. Tomorrow night, big one for the Pac-12 and basically for a playoff spot. Oregon versus Washington. Number 5 versus number 3. We know obviously the game earlier this season was a great one. Washington won on a missed field goal. Oregon went for it on numerous occasions. 4th and goal and did not get points. So there you go. And I think we can say that Oregon has looked better than Washington since the game. I think we can. But yeah, if you look at how Washington and Oregon both have looked since that game. So Washington looked pedestrian against Arizona State, 15-7. Then they held off Stanford by 9. Got a shootout credit at the Coliseum against USC, but won by 10. Struggled a bit, or mightily, they versus Utah, but won 35-28. Then, almost lost to Oregon State in the rain, and then won on the last second field goal versus Washington State. So, I mean, credit to them, they keep finding ways to win, but, in comparison, Oregon won by 14 against Washington State, won by 29 in Utah against Cal, okay, but won by 44. Then, for the most part, controlled USC, but USC kept finding ways to come back, but nonetheless, they beat USC by 9. Controlled Arizona State and then controlled Oregon State, both handily. So, it's going to be interesting. We know that you can say what you want about Bo Nix and Michael Penix. The reality is this is going to be a fun one to watch, certainly. Then Saturday in the morning. My phone can be slow sometimes anyway. So, Saturday morning, we got the Big 12 Championship. Oklahoma State versus Texas. Noon, we got Georgia and Alabama for the SEC. Then Saturday night for the ACC, we got Louisville, Florida State, and Michigan, Iowa. Okay. So, predictions for how I think it'll go now. So, it's going to be a close one. I don't think it'll be as high scoring, perhaps, as the first meeting. But I do think Oregon, finds a way and pulls this out. So, probably 26-22 if I have to guess. But yeah, I think Oregon pulls it out. I think Texas pulls out against Oklahoma State. Although Oklahoma State, on the way beat Oklahoma and, found a way in this. So, I do expect them to flip a fight, but Texas ultimately takes it home. I think Georgia will beat Alabama. It's crazy. Both these teams have been weirdly underrated, I'd say. But if I have to guess, I'm going to go with Georgia. Alabama's been kind of playing with fire, it feels like. Same with Georgia for a couple weeks. And I don't know if this is going to be a fun one, but I think I trust Carson Beck and Brock Bowers perhaps a little bit more. Assuming Brock Bowers will plays, and then, yeah. So, yeah, Georgia over Bama. Michigan over Iowa. Don't have to speak too much about that, although Michigan's offense has been very impressive, I think we can say. It's been pretty lacking a bit the last couple weeks, I will say. So, we know Iowa is going to play with their defense and, be great and find a way. Cade McNamara, that's going to be storyline, obviously. But, yeah, Michigan wins, and then Louisville. They've been very interesting this year. 10-2. It's funny. Last week they were on the good side of 38-31, and then this weekend they lost 38-31. But yeah, their offense has been very good this year. And, I'm going with Louisville. It's tough, but Florida State's offense, I didn't think will still be good. But I don't know, I'm just not that confident in Tate Rodemaker as opposed to Louisville's offense. It's been very good the last number of weeks. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Louisville. It's my take. So, okay, for the first four, it's pretty easy. So, Georgia wins, they're in. Michigan wins, they're in. Washington, if they win, they're in. Florida State, with the way the committee has rated them, it feels simple for them. If they win, they're in. Washington or Oregon, now on the outside looking in, if they win, they're in pretty much. The winner of Pac-12 game is in. Ohio State, one team that's not playing this weekend. If I had to guess how they make it in, I'm guessing Washington wins. Georgia maybe is in a dogfight. I don't know. Florida State loses to Louisville. And then Texas doesn't look impressive or even loses for Oklahoma State. And if I have to guess that Ohio State then finds a way in the fourth spot, if that's the scenario. For Texas, the way it seems. Here's the kicker. Texas beat Alabama in a fun game. And there you have them. So, it'd be kind of weird, although it'd be a strong case, if they beat Georgia and Texas looks impressive. But ultimately, I think Texas looks impressive and Florida State loses. That I think is the simplest scenario for Texas to make it in. Alabama. You know, how he described first, I'll say, if Alabama beats Georgia and Florida State loses to Louisville and Texas doesn't look impressive against Oklahoma State, then I would say Alabama finds a way to squeak in to the playoffs. That would be my scenario for Alabama. All that would have to go their way. But we'll see. We'll see. But if I had to guess with how I predicted, I'm saying if I had to guess a bunch, but with my predictions, how I see it playing out, I would give Georgia the 1 seed because if they win, they're not going to lose the 1 spot. Maybe if it's a short one, maybe if it's a dogfight and Michigan blows out Iowa, maybe that's the case. But I don't see Georgia dropping. I mean, I think many of us thought they could to 2. I mean, being the number 2 in the team in the country, it's like, what more? That's not a better win than that. But anyway, and then Michigan would say 2, and then I would have Oregon 3, which that would be a fun matchup, Michigan and Oregon in the semifinals, and then 4. So I have Louisville winning, and then if that plays out, and then Texas looks impressive, then I do think Texas makes their way into the playoffs over Ohio State. So then it would be Georgia, Texas, Michigan, Oregon, which I think that would be the best scenario for the college football playoffs. That or Georgia versus Ohio State, one of the two. But I don't see, right now I don't see, now Florida State, if they look impressive versus a game Louisville team, I'll feel a bit different. Right now, if Ohio State or Texas makes it, they got a better shot than Florida State does right now. But we'll see. But mark down my prediction for Sunday. Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4. We'll see. Now, final piece of the puzzle. Week 13 predictions. Let's get to it. So, tonight, got what's on paper to be a good one, but unfortunately, I think Al Michaels feels he's a bit cursed on Thursday Night Football because odds are these games on Thursday Night Football look good, but they don't pan out to be. It's like Cincy and Baltimore, of course, Joe Burrow got injured, but and then last week, well, Al Michaels was calling that game, but as in San Fran and Seattle, but we'll see. Nonetheless, two above 500 teams. Dallas hosting Seattle. Dallas 9-point favorites at home. Seattle will get some help, much needed help back on their line. Abraham Lucas will return to right tackle. He's been activated off IR. That news just came a little bit ago. So, there you go. However, Kenneth Walker listed as doubtful. So, but again, Zach Charbonnet, which he's a good back, but he's not as good as Kenneth Walker. This is a must-win for Seattle with Green Bay and the Rams creeping up. Of course, we got the Vikings still at 6-6. But, you know, I'll say this. People have been campaigning, I've been seeing online for a bit, campaigning for Dak to be considered the MVP candidate. And I've said it to my dad and, just in general over the last couple of days. It's great that he has been on a tear the last 6 games. 18 touchdowns, 2 picks. But you look at who they have faced. I don't want to waste too much time trying to find the schedule. Let's look at, Washington, they've taken a step back this year. Panthers, arguably the worst team in the league. Giants, one of the worst teams in the league. Against the Eagles, good. They lost, though. The Rams, feeling good. That's looking to be interesting because the Rams are starting to look good again. Chargers have been suspect this year, but we get the point. So the next 2 weeks for the Cowboys, or I should say they have a good 5-week span. Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, and yes, people will be chuckling at the Bills, but the reality is they'll probably be more hungry for that game. And, anywho, my point being is if the Cowboys keep this going and Dak plays good and amounts to wins against these teams, then I'd be more inclined to put him in the MVP conversation. But for now, we'll see. Anyway, I got the Cowboys though winning tonight 26-21 against Seattle. Do think they'll put up a fight in Seattle, but Cowboys know with the Eagles next week, they gotta keep going if they want to win the division. So there you go. Chargers going to New England to play the Patriots. Chargers 6-point favorites on the road. It seems like Bailey Zappi is going to start for the Patriots this week. So no more benching back Jones for Zappi. It appears it's going to be clear-cut Zappi. Okay, we'll see. Obviously, he had that good little stretch last year. And then that debacle with the Bears and whatnot. Anywho, so Mac Jones, according to reports, did not take any reps yesterday. Brandon Staley's on the hot seat. And look, they aren't out of it yet. So, this could be a way for them to stop the bleeding. You could say. I just don't have much faith in the Patriots as of late. Or this season has not been good. So, Chargers win. Find a way, 21-13 on the road. Lions at the Saints. Lions, 3.5-point favorites on the road. Lions, it was like a snowball effect on Thanksgiving. It's like, okay, now it's not Thanksgiving. They can move forward and yeah. But, people question now the Lions. They went 0 for 5 on fourth down. They still made it within a one-score game at the end. As good as Jordan Love played, the Lions, had plenty of opportunities. They were just too aggressive. But ultimately, I'm taking the Lions here on the road. They win 28-21 over the Saints. New Orleans. They're one of the most disappointing teams this year. Chris Olave is unfortunate with his health. And, Michael Thomas. It's not pretty. Falcons at the Jets. Falcons 2.5-point favorites. Falcons have been a uncomfortable team to pick. I think we can safely say they are the most unsettling favorites to pick this season ever. I mean, they're 5-6 in the lead of the division. Now they can get back to 500 with a win. Jets, the news of Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it looked disastrous again on Black Friday. Was black for the Jets, basically. Could that be enough to spark them to win? I mean, it is against Falcons and it is home. Could be a win, but I'm going with who I think right now is the better team. Has more to play for. Falcons win on the road 23-14. Steelers hosting the Cardinals. Steelers 5.5-point favorites. Steelers. Last week the good. First time in over 50 games they had 400 yards of offense. The bad news, or it was a win, but they only scored 16 points. Now, the good news is they have room to grow. They had opportunities in the red zone. They couldn't capitalize. Mike Sullivan provided a boost to his team. And again, they're at home. And I love Kyler Murray, but as we can see, there are more flaws to this Cardinals team than just a quarterback or offense. So, at home, favorite, Steelers win 23-19. Cardinals cover, but Steelers get the win. Dolphins going to Washington. Dolphins 9-point favorites on the road. Washington just hasn't looked. I mentioned earlier when talking about the Cowboys schedule. Commanders have not looked inspiring much. I mean, I love Sam Howell, but that defense has got loads of issues. 27-20, Dolphins win. An interesting game, though, next up. Broncos going to Houston. Texans 3.5-point favorites at home. A pair of 6 and 5s. Interesting. So, Texans 6 and 5 lost last week on a missed field goal by Matt Amendola. Broncos 5 straight after starting 1-5. Their defense has played. They're arguably a top, not arguably, they're one of the top defenses in the league right now. And Russell Wilson has looked efficient. He's not been great, but he's been efficient, and they turn it around. So I mean, one team's gotta go 7-5, one team's gotta go 6-6, fall to 500. I'm gonna go with the better coach team, better defense. Broncos win. Keep it going. 24-21. Upset. Okay, but Broncos get the win. Panthers on the road in Tampa. Bucks 6-point favorites at home. Don't have to go in too much. Panthers, one of the worst teams arguably the worst team in the league. With the David Tepper thing, it's not been pretty about Bryce Young. Buccaneers could have had that game last week, but didn't. Buccaneers are still relatively alive in the division. Baker has made some mistakes, but has mostly played better this year, in a way. So, despite the record, I'm gonna go with the Bucks 17-10. Bucks cover. Another intriguing game for this weekend. Rams now 5-6, hosting the Browns. Myles Garrett seems to be okay. It seems like it may be Joe Flacco starting for the Browns this weekend. After all this commotion about Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, P.J. Walker, Joe Flacco is going to start. In SoFi, Rams 4.5-point favorites. I mean, if Browns win, I won't mind it. But right now, I think, Rams got some juice. They see the Seahawks, they see the Vikings, they see the Packers, and realize they can jump in. With their defense, they still got, Aaron Donald. They still got quality pieces. Jordan Fuller, I like in secondary. And, offense now with Matt Stafford back, Kyler Williams, had a great return for the Cardinals. Go with the Rams, 24-16. Well, it may be the game of the weekend. Eagles hosting the 49ers. NFC title rematch. 49ers. Well, I'm going to check the lines one more time to see ultimately, because last I checked, 49ers were favored. Just want to check one more time. So, line has changed to, it appears, to now the Eagles being favored. So, either way, I'm going with the Eagles. I mean, at home, say what you want. The Eagles get the win. At home, Should be fun, but Eagles win 28-26. Chiefs Sunday Night Football in Lambeau. Patrick Mahomes' first time in Lambeau. Chiefs 7-point favorites on the road. Now, Chiefs offense has been a bit of a head scratcher. It's like, you know, during the Eagles game, there was that stat, they're the worst team in the second half when it comes to points. And then, they fall 14. First the Raiders on the road, albeit divisional opponent. It's different regime and stuff in Las Vegas. And then they ultimately score 38. Anyway, Chiefs, I have been liking the Green Bay defense. It'll be an interesting test. Their defense versus the offense line of the Chiefs. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs win 27-21 on the road. Joe Burrow's injury took away this from us in a way. But Bengals on the road in Jacksonville. Jags 8-point favorites. Especially without Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. Now 8-3. Jags, they see the Ravens. It's like, well, they win, they go at 9-3, tie them, and we'll see. But Duval County certainly sees good stuff, and 24-10, Jags win. Okay, guys, but that's what I have for the podcast today. I hope you guys enjoy it. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the games. Sunday will be the final selection show of the college football playoffs. So we'll see. But should be a fun weekend of football and sports in general. But we'll see. Anyways, take care, guys. Hit that like button. Leave a like. Appreciate you guys. See you guys all next week. I'm H.O. 2 in Love. Getting out of here. So long and peace.